Lingqi nodded and said, "Yes." After that, Lingqi turned around and took his leave. But he was very curious about that girl. Having been serving his master for 12 years, he knew very well that his master was a man with lofty ambitions, that before the time was right, he would always make sure the situation was well in hand and consolidate at every step. But during the past over a month, in order to find that girl, his master even dispatched the forces that he had been hiding all along. What kind of girl was she exactly? How come his master cared about her so much? A figure was swishing in the forest. Which part of the depths of this forest was she going to? Yinwu didn't know. Anyway, she was going in the direction that the little thing on her head was pointing to. They arrived at a place where there were thistles and thorns all around. It was rather dark in this forest, and there was a faint air of mystery and danger around this place. Savory, savory. Little Reek on her head took a few sniffs, stretched out its chubby little claw and pointed at the depths of the bush surrounded by thorns in front of them. "Stop saying savory. Can you see these thorns as dense as spider webs? They're poisonous. What is it that you little thing want to find exactly?" Watching those thorny bushes, Yinwu said sourly to Little Reek, which was still waving its claws on her head. She looked around and found that the area within a 10-mile radius around this place was probably full of thorns, that she would have to slash her way through these thorns if she wanted to get to the depths. Savory. Right at this moment, Little Reek on her head suddenly jumped down. It toddled towards those thorny bushes on its chubby little legs. Yinwu was startled, saying, "Reek, you want to become a hedgehog?" However, before her voice died away, that little thing raised its head and took a deep breath. Ah poo. With a sneeze-like sound, it suddenly breathed a line of fire out of its little mouth, which shot straight through the bushes like a fire dragon. Instantly, the fire dragon devoured all thorns in its way, and with that a path appeared. Seeing that there was a path now, Little Reek grinned, revealing its wicked-looking fangs, and then happily said to Yinwu, "Mom, savory." After that, before Yinwu reacted, it joyously toddled straight towards the depths of the bush on its chubby little legs. In the blink of an eye, its figure went out of her sight. "Hey Reek, wait a moment." Seeing this, Yinwu hurriedly rushed forward. Along the path made by that little thing with fire, she went squarely into the depths of the bushes. However, though she had tried to catch up at a very fast speed, she didn't see that little guy's figure. In the depths of those bushes, there was a dense wood, and the path branched off in several directions. "Reek." Standing at the intersection, Yinwu yelled, but there was no response. "That damn Reek. Its legs are short and fat. How come it disappeared so soon?" Yinwu frowned. Resigned, she randomly took one of those paths. It was dark and fog started showing up around. After only a few steps, the path branched off in several directions again. It seemed as if she was in a maze. What the hell was this place? However, right on cue, an inexplicably pleasant smell wafted over, which gladdened her heart and refreshed her mind. Yinwu lifted her eyebrows and followed the scent. A land of idyllic beauty? Along a winding path, she walked through a wood of giant, ancient trees and arrived at a valley of idyllic beauty. There were flowers, pools and also a small pavilion. Apparently, somebody built this secluded place. Among everything in this valley, the giant, ancient tree in the middlemost position of the valley was the most intrusive. Its trunk was so thick that even 10 people opening their arms hand in hand wouldn't be able to encircle it. The source of that fragrance was the fruits on that gigantic tree, which were colorful, of strange shapes and giving off a special fragrance. That fragrance was really tempting, especially for Yinwu, who had been starving for a long time. She swallowed hard and could barely subdue her urge to rush over, pick a couple of those fruits and gobble them down. But she had just raised her foot when she saw a magic beast on the other side of the valley out of the corner of her eye. It had a tiger's head and a condor's body, which looked familiar to Yinwu. Wasn't it a tiger condor, a specimen of which she had once seen in the magic beast's forest in the north? Why was a tiger condor here? And it seemed as if that tiger condor had died not long before. "Mom. Savory." Yinwu was contemplating with a frown on her face when a babyish voice came from that gigantic tree. She flicked a careful look at the tree, and saw that Fatty Reek sitting on a branch amid dense foliage was gnawing away at a red fruit in its hands, its little legs dangling. Yinwu cast a resigned glimpse at it. But she didn't walk up to the tree but turned and headed for that tiger condor. Though her strength had been fully restored after that sleep she had had in the bottomless pit, and she had no uncomfortable feelings, she still had to drink beast blood whenever she had the chance, just in case, since her body hadn't revived yet. This tiger condor was in middle stage of Tier 5. There were no wounds caused by fight in its body, except for 2 tiny, almost undetectable tooth marks in its neck. Who else could have done this apart from that little guy? Yinwu felt that this was very strange. Was Reek not a descendant of a phoenix? It could breathe fire, but other than that, she really didn't see this little thing was a phoenix descendant. Instead, it was more like a baby zombie. Little Reek, who was enjoying the fruit on the tree, suddenly paused. It blinked its big eyes, tilted its little head and looked at Yinwu who was drinking beast blood down below, a confused look on its face. What is Mom doing? Feeling that she had drunk enough blood, Yinwu stood up and wiped her mouth. The lingering smell of blood in her mouth disgusted her, but she ignored it and flashed straight towards the giant tree. She casually plucked a white fruit about the size of a honey peach and took a bite of it. So refreshing. Immediately, the refreshing, juicy flesh of the fruit as well as the pleasant scent of it dissolved the foul smell of blood in her mouth. Yinwu's eyes involuntarily lit up. Reek, you little thing are really a picky eater. This fruit tastes so good. No wonder you had me travel so far to come here. Let's have some more. Yinwu gobbled down the fruit, feeling both amazed and delighted at its delicious taste. On hearing Yinwu's compliment, Little Reek grinned, revealing its wicked-looking, sharp teeth, which made it a congenitally ferocious sight. However, Yinwu's attention was on those colorful fruits, so she didn't notice this. Unknowingly, Yinwu consumed over 10 fruits, but she was still not full. Instead, the more she ate, the more she wanted to eat more. These fruits are so good. I should take them all. When I get back, I can give some to Grandma Medicine and Little Leaf, and that man too. Thinking about this, Yinwu started plucking those fruits like crazy. When Yinwu leaped onto the ground, the tree, which was originally full of fruits, had not a single fruit left on it. Little Reek had eaten 4 or 5 red fruits and was full. At this moment, it also climbed down the tree with its claws and chubby little legs. Have you had enough? Yinwu lowered her head and looked at the little guy. The little guy nodded, looking robust and vigorous. It raised its big round eyes, watched Yinwu and stroked its full belly, saying full. What an adorable sight. That's good. Let's go. I'll take you to your mother. Yinwu subdued her urge to pinch its cute chubby face. After saying this, she turned around, face full of satisfaction. She had eaten her fill and also packed a lot of fruits into her storage space, so of course she was in a good mood. Mother? On hearing this, Little Reek tilted its head and thought for a while but failed to figure out the meaning of that word. But it still joyously followed Yinwu on its chubby little legs. When they were passing the tiger condor, Little Reek suddenly stopped, as if something had just occurred to it. Yinwu noticed that there hadn't been any footsteps behind her for quite a while. She couldn't help turning her head back and took a look. Little Reek, what are you doing? Yinwu said with a frown on her face when she saw the little thing lying prostrate on the tiger condor's body. The little guy jumped off the tiger condor, looked at Yinwu and repeatedly shook its head like shaking a rattle, knitting its eyebrows tightly together. It's awful and foul. Mom, don't drink it again. At first Yinwu didn't quite understand why it did that. After hearing its words, light suddenly dawned on her. It was imitating what she had just done. Yinwu pulled a wry face. She drank beast blood because she had to, but this little guy imitated her purely out of curiosity. Little Reek, you little thing, be careful about what you try to imitate from now on. Don't just blindly imitate everything others do. Upon these words, Yinwu turned around, walked over and picked it up. Being held in Yinwu's arms, it was very happy. Mom! It said excitedly in a babyish voice. Yinwu's heart was slightly melted. What is it? I'm hungry. What? Yinwu was stunned. Didn't it say that it was full just a moment ago? She lowered her head, and was just about to ask when that little guy in her arms opened its mouth full of sharp fangs and bit into her shoulder extremely ferociously. Ah! Yin Wu's face changed due to the stabbing pain, and abruptly tried to throw it away. But its two little claws gripped her clothes. She not only failed to throw it away, but also caused her shoulder to be slit by its claws, blood gushing out. That little guy drank even more happily. Blood vessels rippled beneath the skin of Yin Wu's forehead. For an instinct, she could scarcely suppress an urge to strangle this weird creature. Tisk tisk. Totally unaware of this, little Reek drank even quicker, clicking its tongue. The burning pain on her shoulder made Yin Wu feel both depressed and annoyed, her eyes ablaze with anger. Little Reek. Yin Wu thundered and stretched out her hand, attempting to pull it off her shoulder. But the moment she touched it, sizzle. Its body temperature seemed to be as high as 8 million degrees Celsius. Her palm instantly blistered. It was so hot. Yin Wu's eyes were full of astonishment. Staring at little Reek, who was still drinking her blood, she inexplicably felt restless and anxious. What kind of monster was it? That was clearly a phoenix egg, but this guy not only didn't look like a phoenix but also liked drinking human blood. While Yin Wu was agitated, she suddenly felt a pang of burning pain in her shoulder. That pain was somewhat familiar. Yin Wu was suddenly stunned. The primal fire? Right on cue, 1/3 of the primal fire in her body was instantly sucked by it. It was sucking the primal fire in her body? Burp. As if it finally had enough, the little guy on her shoulder let go and gave a loud belch. 1/3 of the primal fire disappeared from her body. Feeling the change in her body, Yin Wu couldn't help but frown, glaring at little Reek, who was in her arms. Seeming to have sensed her anger, little Reek flicked a piteous look at her with its liquid big eyes, pulled her clothes with its little claws, and then rubbed itself against her chest. Was it acting pitiable? Looking at its affectedly pitiful look, Yin Wu tried hard to suppress her annoyance. However, right at this moment, all of a sudden, a pang of burning pain clutched at her shoulder, as if something was corroding her body. The pain was so sharp that she broke out in a cold sweat. Confused, little Reek tilted its head and looked at Yin Wu's face. Seeing that she seemed to be in great pain, it knitted its little eyebrows. And then, it stretched out its little claw and patted on the wound in her shoulder. "It's okay. It's okay." Its voice was babyish, but it was imitating an adult's tone. Yin Wu pulled a wry face in depression. All of a sudden, a dull red light instantly flashed out of the wound in Yin Wu's shoulder, and abruptly shrouded both of them in it. Little Reek's chubby claw was slit open by something, and its blood was dripping down onto the wound in her shoulder. Their blood mixed with each other, and with that a small cloud of dull red blood shot out of the wound and landed beside Yin Wu's feet. Surprisingly, it twisted itself and formed into a complex, bizarre circle, giving off a cold and a hot chi, both of which were mysterious and ancient. Seeing this sudden change, Yin Wu stood transfixed with shock for quite a while. Is this by any chance? After arriving at this exotic world, she had read a lot of books on general history and seen patterns similar to this circle in one of them. Wasn't this circle the long-lost? An indenture circle? An amazed voice came from inside the pendant, as if the speaker had just waken up from a deep sleep. An indenture circle? Was this really an indenture circle peculiar to summoners? Elder White, you woke up. Yin Wu, who had been in shock, said in surprise and delight after hearing the voice. But meanwhile, a beam of scarlet light and another one of black light abruptly shot upwards into the sky from the circle, as if connecting the welkin and the earth. Right at this moment, all magic beasts in this forest raised their heads in awe and looked in the direction of Yin Wu as if by tacit agreement. Some low-level magic beasts even prostrated themselves, trembling, horror and panic glinting in their eyes. In the innermost area of the magic beasts forest in the north, in that cave, an old man, who was sitting cross-legged like a statue, abruptly opened his eyes when the two beams of light shot into the sky. A puzzled look flashed across his old eyes of wisdom. An indenture circle? Looking in the direction of somewhere outside the forest, he knitted his white eyebrows. A summoner? How come there is chi of a summoner's birth? At this moment, a middle-aged hurriedly waked into the cave. Master Shifu. A vision suddenly appeared in the sky. It seems to be in the direction of our ambrosian fruits orchard. A middle-aged man walked inside and said urgently, "Last time, they were late and somebody stole the flame fruit soon after its ripening." He calculated the time and found that those ambrosian fruits in the ambrosian fruits orchard would soon ripen. Just now, there had been a sudden vision in the sky above the orchard, so the middle-aged man naturally went nervous. The old man stood up and cast a glance in the direction of that vision with his eyes which had witnessed vicissitudes of his life, a somewhat solemn look on his face. "Go there and check." "Yes. Yes," the middle-aged answered. The moment he walked out of the cave, with a sudden move of his figure, he disappeared into thin air. However, after thinking for a while, as if concerned, the old man also walked out of the cave and vanished on the spot after a flick of his body. The moment the two beams of light shot into the sky, Yunwu had this weird feeling that there was a close identity between her existence and that of the Welkin and that of the earth. She felt as if she was capable of controlling the Welkin and the earth if she wanted to, as if she was the dominator of them. Was this how it felt to be a summoner? This feeling was so tempting. However, the light soon turned into a crimson dazzlingly luminous sphere, split into two parts. One of them shot into Yunwu's forehead and the other into little Reek's. She felt a sudden constriction in her forefinger, as if something had just clasped it. Yunwu involuntarily lowered her head and took a look. To her surprise, a crimson ring had appeared around her forefinger out of thin air. Was this by any chance like what legend had it? An indenture ring which was a symbol of the identity as a summoner? Right at that moment, a sudden pang of stabbing pain clutched at Yunwu's head, and with that pieces of information flooded into her mind. A summoner? An equal indenture? The general meaning of those pieces of information was that she had comprehended an indenture circle of her own which had indentured little Reek, that she had become a summoner. There was also a long piece of information that she didn't quite understand, but she believed the meaning of it was probably similar to that of other information. However, her body still hadn't revived yet. How come she became a summoner and also indentured this little guy? She had a lot of confusions, but couldn't figure them out no matter how hard she tried. Since an indenture had been signed, an unbreakable bond had also been forged between her and little Reek. Yunwu could even feel the change of little Reek's mood as well as its fighting capability without verbal communication with it. Yes, she could feel its fighting capability, which was amazing. However, this little Reek's fighting capability was zero. It had no fighting capability at all. Yunwu was embarrassed. No matter what, wasn't it a descendant of a phoenix? How come it had no fighting capability? Wasn't this guy too weak? Mom, seeming to have felt that the relationship between it and Yunwu had just become closer, little Reek grinned happily. When it grinned, its sharp fangs were revealed, which startled Yunwu. Fine. Though it had no fighting capability, at least its fangs made it seem ferocious enough. In the future, when she encountered an enemy she couldn't defeat, she could just ask it to reveal its fangs, and hopefully the enemy would be scared. Totally unaware of her thought, little Reek smiled even more brightly. "Elder White, what happened to you? You'd been quiet for such a long time." After the indenture was reached, Yunwu didn't stay there. Carrying the little guy who kept trying to rub itself against her chest and acting cute, Yunwu couldn't help ask this question while walking towards the periphery of the forest. In the pendant, that aged voice gave a resigned sigh. "I don't know either. I just feel that the seal has become much firmer recently. It seems as if I'm going to be sealed again." "You're going to be sealed again? Hasn't I removed the seal already?" Yunwu frowned. "I don't know what is going on either. Now the seal is restoring itself bit by bit. If it weren't for that you just comprehended an indenture circle and woke me up, maybe I'll be sealed while asleep." "How did this happen?" "Elder White, I've already become a summoner. Do you think I can indenture you?" "You can't. Your body still hasn't revived yet." Elder White's aged voice sounded somewhat resigned. Her body still hasn't revived? Was it by any chance because her body hadn't revived and she hadn't indentured him that the seal began to restore itself? Thinking about this, Yunwu inexplicably felt a little anxious. If that was the case, she had to find Long Qingxia and return to the imperial city as soon as possible. Yinwu had just walked out of the forest when miscellaneous loud sounds of fighting were heard. What the hell was going on? Was that fight outside the nest of the phoenix that night by any chance still ongoing? It had been so long. They still hadn't finished fighting? What she didn't know was that two figures had just appeared in midair above that orchard. When the middle-aged man caught sight of the fruit tree, all fruits on which had been plucked without even an unripe one left, as well as the body of the tiger condor, his face became so black that it seemed as if some kind of black liquid was about to ooze out of it. Who did this? Which despicable bastard stooped to theft again and again? I'll tear you to pieces. A growl accompanied by a potent chi instantly rippled outwards. Once again, panic spread through magic beasts in the area within a 100-mile radius around the orchard. The face of the old man standing in midair also darkened when he saw that all fruits on the tree had been stolen. Find that person. You must find the thief even if you have to search every inch of this area. There was extreme anger in the old man's voice. Yes. Outside the Maple Ridge, the war between humans and magic beasts had begun. Roars of magic beasts, boom of cannons, sounds of hand-to-hand fighting. Even the air was filled with smell of blood. With sharp claws and fangs as their weapons, magic beasts' fighting capability was very potent. Humans' fighting capability was relatively lower, but they were able to use fighting spirit to defend themselves, and they also had weapons such as swords and cannons. Lying prostrate on a branch of a big tree on the verge of the forest, Yinwu couldn't help clicking her tongue when she saw the intense battle happening on the vast battleground. She had thought that the fight outside the phoenix nest that night had been still ongoing. Unexpectedly, it was a massive battle between a human army and magic beasts. This scene was much more wonderful than that confrontation between the Ouyang family and the Morong family in the magic beast's forest that day. She saw that not far away, a magic beast directly slit open a man's belly, his bloody intestines dropping down. On another side, a soldier's fighting spirit surged out and smashed a magic beast's head, its brains splashing around. How gory the battle was. But Yinwu felt inexplicably excitement well up inside her, as if her blood was boiling. Why was she feeling this? Yinwu had no idea. She just felt that she enjoyed this bloody scene very much. A faint purple light gleamed in her purple eyes. Suddenly, Little Reek in her arms widened its big eyes, tilted its little head and looked at Yinwu, as if surprised. Yinwu was staring in the direction of the battleground, ignoring it. As a result, she didn't notice that a purple light also flashed across its big, round eyes. Excitement and a thirst for blood flashed across its big eyes, and with that it opened its little red mouth, raised its head and let out a piercing, ferocious phoenix cry. Clang! The phoenix cry emanated right from Yinwu's chest, and it nearly perforated her eardrum, causing a sharp pain in her head. Was it crazy? Originally, Yinwu had intended to quietly enjoy the scene of the battle. Now her plan was ruined. The moment Phoenix, who was leading magic beasts fighting with humans, heard the cry, all her attention was distracted from the battle. She turned her head back and looked in the direction of the source of the cry. Her eyes rested squarely on Yinwu. Even dense foliage was unable to block her view. When she saw the little guy in Yinwu's arms, her beautiful eyes abruptly widened. That was her child. But how did it hatch out? To hatch a phoenix egg, a phoenix must stay beside the egg and let the egg absorb its heat. This was the only way. But due to the intrinsic mother-child bond, she knew that was her child. Human, give me my child back. Phoenix's angry voice resounded around the whole battlefield. Her red figure leaped upwards, transformed into its original beast form, which was a fiery red phoenix, and then let out a resonant, piercing phoenix cry, making the welkin ring. In her eyes, Yinwu must be the human who had despicably snatched her baby. Even tearing Yinwu to pieces wouldn't be enough to dissolve her anger. Watching that murderous phoenix swooping towards her, Yinwu, hiding in dense foliage, was terrified by the intense killing aura. Without a single moment's hesitation, Yinwu took a flying leap and shot towards the chaotic battleground. Clang! Seeing that Yinwu was taking her to the battleground, Little Reek in her arms was very excited. It raised its head and let out another piercing phoenix squeak. You brat still dare to squeak? It was all your fault. Feeling that the phoenix was pursuing her hotly and spewing flames, Yunwu was terribly anxious. She enveloped herself in wind element and started swishing around aimlessly on the battlefield. Little Reek in her arms had no intention of correcting its mistakes. Instead, as if excited by this chase, it started squeaking again. Yunwu itched to strangle it with her bare hands. She subconsciously stretched out her hand and directly clamped it on its little mouth, which had small zombie fangs revealing outside the lips. On seeing this, the female phoenix widened her eyes and let out an extremely angry squeak which resounded around the whole battlefield. Human, let go of my child. Give me my child back. The sound waves of the female phoenix's roar was so powerful that Yunwu nearly spat blood. A sharp pain in her eardrums. Little Reek was enjoying this very much. Though Yunwu was covering its mouth, it was happily waving its two little claws which were not too sharp, its chubby little legs kicking around constantly. It looked like a puppy swimming. But in outsider's sight, it seemed as if Yunwu kidnapped this little guy which was madly struggling. Clash! The female phoenix let out an extremely angry shriek which made the welkin ring, as if even wind and clouds were changing their directions due to this scream. The female phoenix started spewing lances of flames, but she didn't dare to hit Yunwu for fear that the flame might hurt her child. Flustered, Yunwu kept rushing madly. Wherever there was a way, she took it. The battlefield was so vast that she had no idea which part of it she was in. However, at this moment, all fighting on the battleground stopped. Both magic beasts and humans concentrated all their attention on that kidnapped phoenix baby and that girl in black, who was fleeing on the battlefield. Who was she? However, no matter who she was, anybody who saw her coming in their direction dodged aside as quick as possible. Because wherever she went, flames spewed by the female phoenix flying in midair would soon follow. Those who failed to dodge in time, no matter magic beasts or humans, were instantly toasted. Seeing that all magic beasts and humans were avoiding her, which left her nowhere to hide, Yunwu felt resigned and depressed. Give me my child back. In midair, the phoenix was hotly pursuing her, breathing fire, eyes wide with rage. Yunwu felt that sooner or later she would become a roast human if things kept going this way. After flicking a glance at the little guy in her arms, which was happily waving its claws and kicking its chubby legs, she began to wonder whether she should just return this guy to that phoenix. Though it was her indentured beast, this little guy's fighting capability was zero, and now she was about to be exhausted to death trying to flee from its mother who was chasing her and trying to kill her. But this little guy was having so much fun. Did it have any idea that it was indentured to her? It seemed as if this guy regarded her as a nanny. Thinking of this, Yunwu, who had been swishing around rapidly, abruptly stopped. Seeing that the phoenix was spewing another pike of fire towards her, Yunwu grabbed Little Reek and lifted it up above her head. Wait! Yunwu, who was panting heavily, let out a cry which resounded through this bloody battlefield. Fortunately, the phoenix stopped in time. Otherwise, the giggling little guy, which had no idea what was going on, and which thought that Yunwu was just teasing it, would have been toasted. What a vicious human! The female phoenix transformed herself into a woman, an angry and murderous look on her face, glaring at Yunwu who was using her child as a shield. Vicious? What kind of vicious thing did she do? This little Reek had devoured 1/3 of the primal fire. There was no way the flames spewed by her could hurt it. However, Yunwu scorned to argue with her. She raised the chubby little guy in her hands, as if she was doing weightlifting. You've been demanding the return of your son all along, so I'll just give it back to you. Actually, I've been meaning to return it to you all the time. But you yelled at me and tried to kill me the moment you saw me, which made my heart lurch, so I started running. Yunwu said in a loud voice, bold and straight. However, judging by the look on her face, she wasn't scared at all. On hearing this, the female phoenix went even angrier. And even those standing in the distance could sense her anger. A red figure flashed down and snatched that little guy from Yunwu's hands as quick as she could. In a seemingly relieved voice, Yunwu said, "All right. Now you got your kid back. For the record, whatever it is that is going to happen in the future has nothing to do with me." After saying this, with a twitch of her hand, Yunwu turned around and left. She did this in such an elegant and unrestrained manner that anybody living in modern society, had they seen this, would be reminded of that sentence in a famous poem. I waved my hand and brought no cloud with me. However, she had just taken one step forward, and the leg behind was still on the ground when something grabbed it. She lowered her head and took a look. She saw that little Reek was tightly holding on to her pant leg and staring fixedly up at her with its big round eyes filled with tears, a pitiful look on its face. Mom! Its babyish, tearful voice was quivering, as if it was a child whose parents were abandoning it. Yunwu was speechless with embarrassment, her lips twitching violently. She was really not a wet nurse. She had no breast milk for this little guy. Would anybody please take this little fatty away? However, the phoenix darted a murderous look at Yunwu when she heard the little guy calling her mom. The look on the phoenix's face instantly switched from anger to iciness, and there was intense killing intent at the bottom of her eyes. If her gaze were able to kill, Yunwu would probably have been torn to pieces by now. Reek, get your claws off me. Yunwu hurriedly darkened her face and thundered for fear that the phoenix might take action. But little Reek ignored her yell and her angry face. It not only grabbed her pant leg with its claws, but also clamped its chubby little legs around her shank like a Chinese donut. Pouting its little mouth, it called in a tearful voice, "Mom, Mom." This brat still dared to call her mom. Any woman who saw her child regarding another woman as mother would get furious and try to kill that woman. A murderous, wrathful look flashed across the phoenix's eyes. This time, Yunwu's heart really lurched. There was a saying which said that inviting a god to one's home is easy, but having the god leave is difficult. This little guy had come to her on its own account. Why was it still so difficult to have it go back home? Beneath the murderous gaze of the phoenix, Yunwu was horrified. Eventually, resigned, she secretly clenched her teeth, stretched her hand into her sleeve and fished out a big, red fruit out of her storage space. In outsider's eyes, it seemed as if the fruit had been stored in her sleeve. Here you are. This is the last one I got. Take this and go with your own mother. Don't follow me. Understand? The moment Yunwu took out the crimson fruit, a gratifying and refreshing fragrance spread out. A single sniff of it made people feel comfortable and relaxed. The moment the phoenix saw the fruit taken out by Yunwu, her pupils contracted noticeably and a flash of amazement crossed the bottom of her eyes. A crimson ambrosian fruit? She was merely a human. How come she had a crimson ambrosian fruit? Crimson ambrosian fruits contained concentrated fire element. Ambrosian fruit trees blossomed every 1,000 years, and it took them an extra millennium to yield, so this kind of fruit was very precious and very rare even in the realm of divine beasts, not to mention in the mortal realm. For fire-attributed magic beasts, crimson ambrosian fruit was very nourishing. It could also help a magic beast make a breakthrough when the beast was evolving. If a fire-attributed human ingested this kind of fruit, not only would his or her fire-attributed constitution be strengthened, but also his or her power would double. Crimson ambrosian fruits were especially precious for human alchemists, because even a single droplet of crimson ambrosian fruit juice could add amazing property to the product. Surprisingly, this human gave a whole crimson ambrosian fruit to her child. The killing intent in her eyes unnoticeably abated to a large extent. However, what she didn't know was that Yunwu, who had poor discernment, merely felt that this fruit was refreshing and crisp. Back then she gobbled down over 10 fruits to fill her belly. She didn't feel anything unusual after eating them, so she didn't think much. Of course, Yunwu took all the fruits from that tree and stored them in her storage space, the total number of which was 50 to 60 at the smallest, regardless of their colors. So she generously gave one to this little guy and didn't feel that it was a painful loss at all. Little Reek was indifferent to Yunwu's generosity. It clung onto her pant leg, raised its chubby face and looked at Yunwu, shaking its head, big eyes full of tears. No. Yunwu's lips twitched. Did this brat by any chance feel that one fruit was not enough? It had indeed seen her take all those fruits. She stretched her hand into the other sleeve, produced another big fruit which was blue, then passed it to the little guy saying, "This is the last one. Behave yourself. Don't be too greedy." The phoenix's pupils contracted again as she saw the fruit. Astonishment gleamed in her eyes. A water ambrosian fruit? This human also had a water ambrosian fruit? But little Reek still shook its head, saying, "No." Finally, Yunwu's face went angry. She glared at it. "You brat. What is it that you want exactly? Why did it cling on to her when its natural mother was right beside it? Did she really look like a wet nurse so much?" Yunwu was very resigned and depressed. However, she still stooped down, roughly grabbed it, raised it and stuffed the two big fruits into the arms of the little guy, which was pouting and looking at her with cute, pitiful and fluid eyes. "Stay with your mom and behave yourself. Someday, when you're weaned, I'll come back to pick you up," said Yunwu, as if coaxing a kid. After saying this, with a twitch of her hand, she directly threw it at the phoenix, regardless of whether it had understood or not. "Leave here right now. And remember to teach it how to behave, so it won't mistake someone else as a wet nurse. Doesn't it have any idea that will embarrass others? I'm still single." After hearing Yunwu's words, the phoenix also felt depressed. Her child chose a human over her, and so many people saw this. She was terribly embarrassed. But this human sounded as if she was the one to be blamed for all this. And she couldn't even contradict her, which was very annoying. But the phoenix didn't hesitate. As if worried that her child might follow this human and leave her, she carried little Reek, leaped upwards, turned into a fiery red phoenix and flew away immediately. However, before leaving, she raised her head and let out a commanding, piercing scream which instantly rippled through the whole battleground. Clang! On hearing the piercing scream, all magic beasts on the battlefield, both injured ones and unharmed ones, quickly retreated into the forest like a tide. Before long, not a single magic beast could be seen on the battlefield, except for those dead ones on the ground. Yunwu looked in the direction of the phoenix's receding figure. When she withdrew her gaze, a relieved look appeared on her face. How could she not feel relieved when that little thing that kept calling her mom was no longer around? She leisurely turned around and planned to return to Luo City. But the moment she turned around, she saw hundreds of thousands of troops in front of her, eyes of every one of whom were fixed on her. In those eyes gleamed surprise, curiosity, and puzzlement. They were all sizing her up. Being watched by so many people, Yunwu furrowed her eyebrows. At this moment, an officer followed by a couple of soldiers walked up to her. "May I ask you something, lady?" Yunwu flicked a glimpse at the man who was barely in his 30s, crossed her arms across her chest and said in a languid, bland voice, "What is it? Who are you? Was it you who stole the egg of the phoenix?" The officer queried in a commanding voice, sizing her up with piercing eyes. It sounded more like an interrogation than a query. Yunwu peered at the clothing that officer was wearing, and believed that he was probably a deputy general. She curved her lips in a half-smile. "Deputy General, why am I having this feeling that you're not asking me but interrogating me? What's going on here? You want to interrogate me on this battlefield? Did I kill anybody or burn anybody's house? Or did I rob your family members?" On hearing this, that deputy general frowned and his face slightly darkened. "Lady, in a circumstance like this, you're still in the mood for joking? Do you have any idea how many residents and our soldiers got killed because of what you did?" After hearing this, Yunwu lifted her eyebrows, but a flash of apathy crossed the bottom of her eyes. Because of what she did? Had she done anything? Even if she had, given her manner and style, it was not a deputy general's place to interrogate her like interrogating a prisoner, not to mention that she hadn't done anything. Besides, she didn't know about these things at all. So Deputy General is telling me that I should have a sad look on my face because of all those people who got killed, aren't you? It is just that there's one thing that I don't quite understand. Did those people's deaths have anything to do with me? Did their deaths have anything to do with you? Do you know that the very reason why they were killed was because you stole the phoenix egg? Yunwu pretended that light had suddenly dawned on her. She raised her eyes and looked at that deputy general. "Oh, now I understand. So Deputy General is saying it is those who stole the phoenix egg that deserve death penalty. But I want to ask Deputy General, how can you be so sure that I was the one who stole the phoenix egg? I mean, even you and these hundreds of thousands of troops couldn't steal the egg from the phoenix. You actually think that a little girl like me, whose arms and legs are so thin, somehow managed to steal the egg from that divine beast? Does Deputy General by any chance think that all these troops of yours are just a bunch of good-for-nothing fatheads who can't even compare with a little girl? Or does Deputy General think that I'm a reincarnation of some god, who is more powerful than all these troops combined? If the latter is the case, that will be a huge compliment I don't deserve, and I will feel flattered and honored. It seemed as if Qinling hadn't expected that this black-faced little girl was so eloquent and cunning. After hearing her words, he was at a loss what to say, because it would always be his fault no matter how he answered those rhetorical questions. Instantly, he felt embarrassed and was unable to find a way out of this awkward situation. Deputy General Chun, General-in-Chief Yin asked you to invite this lady, but you started chatting with her. This is not the right thing to do. However, right at this moment, a mild, amused voice came. A tall and straight figure not far away was walking towards them at a steady pace. The man was about 35 or 36, looking refined, elegant and very amiable, a big smile on his face. He was wearing a gray robe instead of a military uniform, which made him seem like a teacher. Please pardon him for his impertinence, lady. Deputy General Chen has always been like this. If his words offended you, please allow me to apologize to you on behalf of him. But our General-in-Chief would like to have a talk with you. Would you mind walking a few steps? His voice was mild and elegant. Though his words were polite, his attitude was neither humble nor haughty. Because of this, Yinwu couldn't help sizing him up. Just now, when he was walking over, his steps was sure-footed, and his chi was stable, which indicated that he was probably a kung fu expert. But he managed to conceal his warrior's chi with his cultured and elegant appearance. Even Yinwu could barely detect it. By no means was he a common person. Judging from his clothing, words and manners, he probably was a military counselor, and his status was probably pretty high. Now that Lord Counselor put it this way, I'm actually interested in meeting this General-in-Chief Yin you mentioned. Yinwu withdrew her gaze, curved her lips and said, on hearing her calling him Lord Counselor, when you couldn't help lifting his eyebrows. He watched Yinwu and a flash of amusement crossed the bottom of his eyes. How piercing this girl's eyes were. She actually guessed his identity after briefly peering at him. This way please, lady. Seeing that when you led the way himself. All those soldiers nearby were amazed. Counselor Wen was invited back by General-in-Chief himself. Even General-in-Chief was respectful to him. But now he was leading the way for this black-faced little girl? Chunling's face was a little sudden. Watching Yinwu, who was leisurely, languid and didn't have the right attitude that she should have when she was about to meet the General-in-Chief, he felt a little uncomfortable. But he didn't say anything, following them with a sullen face. After a while, they walked through ranks of soldiers and finally arrived at a broad open space at the rear. Corpses in this area had been sketchily cleared off. After bringing Yinwu to this place, when you took a step forward and said very respectfully to a heavily armed, tall figure who was standing among some officers, General, she's here. That tall figure, who was standing with his back to Yinwu, turned around after hearing his words. This man was nobody else but Yin Lingyi, the General-in-Chief Yin of Zhou Kingdom. Originally, Yin Lingyi was in a border city in the south. When magic beasts brought chaos to this border city in the west, in order to ensure the safety of the 7th prince who was garrisoning this border city, the emperor issued an order and dispatched him to the west to deal with magic beasts. Yinwu had been in this exotic world for more than half a year, but this was the first time that she had seen her natural father. He was wearing military uniform covered by silver armor, barely in his 40s. His face was a mixture of seriousness and apathy. In his piercing eyes gleamed strictness and solemnity specific to servicemen. After flicking a glance at Yinwu, whose face was black, he briefly frowned. But the look on his face was still serious and apathetic. In a cold, deep voice he asked, "You were the one who stole the phoenix egg? Are you aware of the crime you committed?" She was supposed to have some special feeling since this was the first time that she had met her natural father. But Yinwu didn't feel anything. Instead, She took an instant dislike to him on hearing the first remark he made. What do you mean, General-in-Chief Yin? Yunwu cast a cold, languid glance in his direction, saying, Does General-in-Chief Yin by any chance also think that I was the one who deliberately stole the phoenix egg? That I'm the cause of this war? You were not. I never expected that General-in-Chief Yin, the supreme commander of Zhou Kingdom's armies, is also so stupid. The latter half of her remark was very sharp. She stared back at him, the look in her eyes just as apathetic. Faces of other generals changed as they heard this. Chunling's face abruptly fell as he heard her words. He thundered, Little girl, do you have any idea who you're talking to? How dare you be so impertinent? I can mete out punishment to you according to military laws for what you have just said. Yunwu was not afraid at all. Instead, she curved her lips and turned her head aside, saying, Deputy General Chun, those were quite big words. General-in-Chief didn't say anything yet, but you started yelling. Do you think that your status is higher than his? You. Bullshit. Chunling's face was dark with rage after he heard her words. What an eloquent girl. This girl really wouldn't let anybody get the best of her. When you had been silently observing her all along. Right at this moment when Chunling was so angry that he was about to pull out his saber, when you hurriedly walked forward and said mildly with a smile, That's enough, Deputy General Chin. Stay out of this. Let General-in-Chief handle it. You're taking her side? I'm not taking anybody's side. But if you keep doing this, you'll only end up embarrassed. When you deliberately lowered his voice when he said the latter half of his remarks, though she was merely fabricating it when she said that Deputy General Chen wanted to arrogate himself the right to mete out punishment, there were hundreds of thousands of soldiers watching this. If he really did something on an impulse, there would be no way back. After hearing this, Chunling was speechless with anger for quite a while. He darted a ferocious look at Yunwu and took his leave silently with a twitch of his hand. Yunwu slightly squinted her purple eyes, flicked a glance at Wenyu and then briefly sized him up. This counselor had been smiling all along. He seemed unthreatening but was absolutely far more sophisticated and smarter than that deputy general. He was a typical smiling tiger, outwardly kind but inwardly cruel. However, Yunwu had no interest in competing with him. Now that she had seen this so-called father, Yunwu didn't want to waste any time continuing to talk with them. You don't have to deal with this any longer. Now that you suspect I was the one who did that, just take it as the truth. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to take my leave. After saying this blandly, Yunwu turned around, planning to leave. However, Yunlingyi's apathetic, commanding voice came from behind. Now that you admitted you did that, I can't let you leave. Guards, take her. On hearing the order, soldiers nearby flooded over and solidly surrounded Yunwu. Their wicked-looking swords reflected cold gleams. Yunwu's eyes swept around with iciness gleaming at the bottom of them. She turned her head back and looked in the direction of Yunlingyi, whose face was sullen all along. What are you doing? You want to arrest me? You're the cause of this war and responsible for the deaths of so many people. No matter what the reason was, I have to escort you back to the capital. His Majesty will decide how to punish you. Yunlingyi said apathetically and seriously, watching her with an expressionless face. May I ask what kind of punishment His Majesty will mete out to me? Beheading me? Or condemning all my family members and relatives to death? Yunwu lifted her eyebrows and asked. Yunlingyi made no response. A general beside him said in a gruff voice, So many people died because of you. Even the deaths of all your family members and relatives won't be enough to atone for your crime. On hearing this, Yunwu couldn't help bursting into laugh in which there was a tone of inexplicable sarcasm. What are you laughing about? Staring at her, Wenyu frowned. Her laugh confused everybody present. Under the circumstances, she still dared to laugh like that? Did she lose her sanity because of overwhelming fear? Troops and officers around her thought. Yunwu stopped laughing and a flash of coldness crossed the bottom of her eyes. I'm actually anticipating the day when all my family members and relatives would be condemned to death. Watching her, Yunlingyi kept having this feeling that the way she looked at him was somewhat strange. But he still yelled in a cold and serious tone. Take her away. Soldiers immediately started closing in on Yin Wu. Wait, General-in-Chief. About this matter. Would you please allow me to express my opinion first? When you said. Yin Lingyi flicked a glance at him with a cold, sullen look on his face, saying nothing. However, when you spoke again, Yin Wu curved her lips in a smile and said blandly, Lord Counselor, there is no need for you to make any more remarks. General-in-Chief Yin is determined to uphold the dignity of the law. How could he show mercy on me whose family members and relatives should be condemned to death? Was she saying that she didn't want anybody to intercede for her? That she'd already resigned herself to her fate? Lady General-in-Chief didn't mean that. You dash. But I was born hard to kill. Even if God wants to take my life, he has to ask for my permission first, not to mention your emperor. Her voice was bland, but there was wild arrogance in it. What a haughty girl. How dare she say such treasonable and heretical words? She's so conceited. Tell me about it. This girl should be put to the sword on the spot. On hearing her words, all those generals around couldn't help mumbling, their faces very serious. How dare this black-faced girl make such remarks? Isn't she too self-important? With a sullen and angry look on his face, Qinling abruptly thundered. What an arrogant girl. I'd like to find out whether it is because you are hard to kill, or because you're incurably stubborn that you dare to be so haughty. He had been forbearing all along. If he didn't teach this arrogant girl a lesson, his anger would never dissolve. He mobilized Tier 7 late-stage fighting spirit, and shot towards Yin Wu like greased lightning. Yin Wu curved her lips in a sneer, an icy look in her eyes. When the sword was swung at her, with a single movement of her feet and a sudden twitch of her figure, she instantly disappeared into thin air on the spot. The sword missed its target. Qinling was stunned. Where was she? With a frown on his face, Qinling turned his head back and looked around. But all of a sudden, a stabbing pain accompanied by cold was felt in his neck, and with that he smelled a faint smell of blood. I say this a lot. Whoever wants to kill me will die before me. Deputy General Qin, do you think I should take you life first? A cold voice came from beside his ear. All Qinling's movements froze, surprise gleaming in his eyes. Horror and puzzlement rose inside him. She was so fast. He didn't know when she appeared at all. Standing beside him, Yin Wu was holding a cold dagger against his neck. The skin of his neck was slit by the sharp blade, beads of blood oozing out of the shallow cut. In those troops' eyes, Yin Wu's figure seemed to have appeared out of thin air, which was weird and astonishing. But when they collected themselves, those generals around started yelling, You little girl are so bold. Let go of Deputy General Chun. How dare you be so unruly in front of the General-in-Chief? The crime you committed is beyond atonement. Let him go. While those generals were yelling, Yin Lingyi's face also went cold and sullen. Let go of him. Abducting a general will double your guilt. Release him immediately, or else I'll make you too. On hearing this, Yin Wu secretly sneered. She raised her cold eyes and looked at Yin Lingyi. General-in-Chief, you convicted me of a crime doubly serious so easily? I might be scared to death. But I'd like to ask a question. This deputy general of yours was aiming to kill from the very beginning. Was I supposed to stand still and let him stab his sword into my heart? That's the military discipline you've been talking about? In her last incarnation, she was an orphan who had no idea what it felt like to have a father. During this incarnation, she had a father. Though she had never expressed anything to him, deep down in her heart, she still had a trace of expectation. As a result, when that man mentioned General-in-Chief Yin, she agreed to come here to meet her so-called father. It was not until she was disillusioned that she found that coldness and anger was inexplicably bubbling in her. When he made those remarks with a cold face regardless of the facts, Yin Wu felt even more disappointed. You were the cause of this war, and you also made impertinent remarks. Deputy General Chen's trying to arrest you was entirely reasonable. Yin Lingyi said coldly, watching her with an icy look. Entirely reasonable? Yin Wu laughed, as if having just heard the funniest joke. During the previous fight, Qinling was aiming at her vital parts. If he hit the target, she would have been disabled if not killed. All generals present were kung fu practitioners, so they were all aware of this. The frown on Wen Yu's face grew deeper as he watched Yin Wu laughing, as if he was pondering over something and about to find out something. General-in-Chief, would you please calm down and hear me out? At this moment, Wen Yu spoke again. Counselor 1, there's no need for you to intercede on her behalf. She threatened a general with a dagger in front of so many troops. If she gets away without being severely punished, how is General-in-Chief supposed to establish his authority and lead the army in the future? That's true. She did this in front of so many soldiers. How could we let this criminal get away unpunished? General-in-Chief, you don't have to do it yourself. Let me teach this girl a lesson. A general in middle stage of Tier 8 stepped forward. Yin Wu just stood there and coldly watched them. When she saw Yin Lingy nodding, Yin Wu curved her lips in an extremely cold smile, as if she had finally given up her fond hope. Yin Lingy, the General-in-Chief, you really broadened my horizons today. The moment she finished the last word, her dagger, which had been against Qin Ling's neck, was swished towards the ground before Yin Lingy like a beam of cold light. Meanwhile, before anybody could react, she concentrated her strength in her palm, and threw a palm attack on the back of Qin Ling's right shoulder. Crack! With a faint sound of bones snapping, Qin Ling was sent flying away like a piece of rag. Yin Lingy's face instantly changed. He mobilized his Tier 9 late-stage fighting spirit, moved sideways and caught Qin Ling, who was thrown away. Meanwhile, he threw a palm strike at Yin Wu. But Yin Wu's figure weirdly flashed away and dodged Yin Lingy's strike. Yin Lingy, from now on, the relation between you and me will be like that dagger. The chilly voice was still resounding around the battlefield where hundreds of thousands of troops were standing, but Yin Wu had leaped upwards, turned into a whirlwind and shot into the sky like a beam of black light. What kind of speed could be deemed fast? People who saw this scene knew the answer. Amazed, thousands of troops raised their heads and saw that the black light flashed across the sky and soon disappeared into the distance. At this moment, Qin Ling's pained groan was heard. Ouch! My hand. It was at this moment that those soldiers and officers collected themselves. Get the medic here. After the order was issued, a medic hurriedly came. However, an amazed and solemn look appeared on the medic's face after he performed a medical examination. His bones broke under that palm strike. I'm afraid Deputy General Qin won't be able to use this arm again. Qin Ling, who was sweating buckets due to the sharp pain, paled visibly on hearing the medic's words, and almost sat up from the ground. What? What did you say? I'm disabled? As if panic-stricken, Qin Ling said emotionally, No. I want to fight side by side with the General-in-Chief. I can't lose my arm. Medic, help me please. Deputy General Qin, I'm really sorry, but there's nothing I can do. Alas. On hearing Qin Ling's begging, the medic sighed and shook his head. Medic, is the wound in Deputy General Chen's arm really incurable? Yin Lingy furrowed his forehead. He had never expected that that girl was so ruthless. The medic stood up, walked forward and shook his head. General-in-Chief, in some cases, broken bones can be cured. But all the bones of his arm fractured. Even if he is cured, I'm afraid he would never be able to use a sword again. Hearing this, Qin Ling instantly felt as if he was thrown into hell. Despair glinting in his eyes, he clamped his left hand on his right arm, which was aching intensely, and which he could control no more. As a serviceman without his arm, how was he supposed to fight? How was he supposed to serve his country? Wasn't he now good for nothing? Anger surged through all generals present as they heard the medic's words. That black-faced girl disabled Deputy General Qin. She's so vicious. God damn it. We should have stabbed her to death just now. What a ruthless girl. Yin Lingy's face was also sullen. He had seen his deputy general disabled before his very eyes, but there was nothing he could do. He clenched his fists tightly. General, look at that dagger. When you suddenly said in a deep, surprised voice, looking in the direction that he was pointing in, those generals found that the dagger was still sticking upright in the ground. What was the fuss about? It's just a dagger. However, before the general's voice died away, crack. A faint snap was heard, and with that the dagger, along with its hilt, broke into numerous pieces which then scattered onto the ground. All pieces were very even. One needed precise control of one's spiritual power to do this. Which one of these generals present was capable of making a dagger break into even pieces like that? Even Yunlingyi probably couldn't do that. At this moment, a breeze blew by. Beneath the gaze of all people present, those pieces of the dagger turned into wind element and instantly disappeared into the air. Everybody's pupils abruptly contracted, astonishment gleaming in them. That was not a real dagger. It was a wind blade formed of wind element. How was that possible? She actually condensed wind element into a tangible weapon. Who was that black-faced girl exactly? A look of terror flashed across those generals' faces. Yunlingyi frowned, as if he also hadn't expected that that dagger was formed of wind element. Surprised as Wen Yu was, he was more puzzled. General-in-Chief, judging from that girl's words, there seems to be some kind of relation between you two. You really have no impression of her? She was related to him? Yunlingyi ransacked his memory, but didn't find anything concerning that girl. However, the last remark she made before she left was still reverberating in his mind. The relation between you and me will be like that dagger. In the depths of the maple ridge, Yunwu was unaware of what kind of trouble the 2 ambrosian fruits she gave to the little guy had caused the phoenix. When the old man and the middle-aged man appeared in midair above the nest of the phoenix, the furious and aggressive chi given off by them sent all magic beasts nearby lie prostrate on the ground, trembling in fear. Inside the cavern, the little, chubby reek was misbehaving itself. It kept climbing out of its place, and the phoenix had to bring it back again and again. It also kept calling Mom. And it was very obvious that it was not calling the phoenix, which was why there was a sullen look on her face. She had a faint feeling that there was some kind of bond between her son and that black-faced girl, and somehow she found that bond very familiar. As if, while the phoenix was contemplating in suspicion, a potent chi suddenly surged into the cavern with fierce momentum. Who is it? The phoenix's face darkened. She casually threw little Reek onto the body of the spotted snake on the side, and then instantly flashed out of the cavern. The moment she went out of the cavern, the phoenix sensed a chi filled with fury and frowned. Who are you? Why did you come to my phoenix cavern? On the sight of the phoenix, the old man and the middle-aged man standing in midair smelled a gratifying and refreshing fruit fragrance given off by her, anger bubbling inside them. Was it you, a phoenix descended into our realm, who committed theft in our orchard? The middle-aged man's voice was very deep and angry. Orchard? Which orchard? I don't know what you are talking about. Humans are not welcome in this area. Leave immediately, or else I'll be hard on you. After what had happened to her son, the phoenix was exceptionally antipathetic to humans. However, on hearing her words, the middle-aged man in midair, who recalled that their precious fruits had been stolen twice, instantly became furious. Humph! Be hard on us. I'd like to find out who is going to be hard on who. The moment he finished the last word, with a whooshing sound, the middle-aged man flashed down like greased lightning. In the blink of an eye, a red figure and a gray figure engaged each other, and an intense fight abruptly started outside the cavern, potent killing aura spreading outwards. All magic beasts nearby were scared and hurriedly fled away from this area. The 2 figures violently impacted on each other, generating a massive undulation of power that almost quaked the whole mountain. Inside the cavern, little Reek, which was carefully wrapped in the spotted snake's body, opened its mouth, revealing 2 sharp fangs, and bit the spotted snake. Hiss hiss, the spotted snake struggled in sharp pain. Taking advantage of this opportunity, little Reek slid down the spotted snake's body and ran towards the outside of the cavern. Hiss hiss. On seeing this, the spotted snake was horrified and hastily pursued the little guy, heedless of the 2 small bloody holes in its body. However, little Reek had just reached the entrance of the cave when its chubby little body was immobilized by a force shot down from midair. The old man standing in midair twitched his sleeve, and with that little Reek swished towards him like a ball and landed in his palm. A hybrid? I've lived most of my life, Yet this is the first time that I've seen this kind of weird little thing. The old man lifted his eyebrows and mumbled after flicking a glance at the half-human little guy in his hand. Little Reek was imprisoned in a transparent ball formed of energy. It kept scratching on the inside of the energy ball with its sharp claws, making scratchy sounds. Unfortunately, all its efforts were in vain. Eventually, it stopped, tilted its little head and watched the white-bearded old man. When the old man was sizing it up, it was also affectedly peering at him. As the old man murmured, it also imitatively lifted its little eyebrows and murmured, "Old man. Ugly. Bad-looking, bad-looking." On hearing this, the old man was stunned, as if he had never expected that this little guy not only could imitate him but also was very good at this. However, when he smelled the scent of ambrosian fruits given off by it, he furrowed his forehead. It seemed that this phoenix was indeed the one who had stolen those fruits in the orchard. His thousands of years' work had been stolen. How could he not be angry? How could he be indifferent? But surprisingly, apart from the scent of ambrosian fruits, he also sensed a trace of a summoner's chi in this little guy. It had been indentured to a summoner? The old man couldn't help sizing it up. When he finally confirmed this, a flash of surprise crossed the bottom of his eyes. A summoner had really been born on this Shenzhou continent? "Give me my child back," the phoenix thundered in anger. The red figure that had been fighting with the middle-aged man furiously launched an attack on the old man, trying to snatch her son from the old man's hand. A cold look flashed across the bottom of the old man's eyes, which had witnessed vicissitudes of his life. With a twitch of his hand, a surge of potent power hurtled at the phoenix and threw her away. The phoenix was hit by that weird, potent power and thrown back, almost totally powerless to fight back. When a magic beast transformed itself into a human, its fighting capability would become slightly weaker, but she shouldn't have been too weak to fight back. There was only one plausible explanation for this. The opponent was too powerful. Who was this old man exactly? Who are you exactly? Why did you take my son away from me? The phoenix glared at the old man standing in midair, her eyes wide with rage. "If you want your son back, bring me that summoner whom your son is indentured to." This was the only remark that the old man made. After saying this, he slowly turned around and left. He had just turned around, but in the blink of an eye, his figure was hundreds of miles away, and the next second his figure disappeared into the distance. She wanted to pursue him but found that he was nowhere to be seen. On seeing this, with a twitch of his figure, the middle-aged man also instantly disappeared into thin air on the spot. Watching this, the phoenix was both angry and concerned. But what angered her even more was that her son had been indentured to a human. She recalled that black-faced girl. Human. "When I catch you, I'll tear you to pieces." A furious, piercing cry instantly rippled through the whole forest. Flocks of birds were alarmed and scattered in all directions. Yin Wu had no idea what had just happened in the depths of the Maple Ridge, and she certainly didn't know that her undesigned actions were going to generate a series of troublesome consequences. The moment Yin Wu left the battlefield, she landed in a lonely spot outside a border city, because she had faintly felt that two figures seemed to have been pursuing her. It seemed that the two assassins had really been lying in ambush outside the forest, waiting for her to show up. It was just that for some reason, they didn't launch an attack on her but just followed her. As Yin Wu landed on the ground, she put on a black robe, enveloped herself in wind element, and with a twitch of her figure, she instantly disappeared into thin air on the spot. Yin Wu felt that the 7 elemental powers in her body had considerably strengthened after she had that long sleep in that bottomless pit, and then drank blood of that tiger condor, and her speed had also become more than twice as fast as before, though she still wasn't powerful enough to kill those two assassins, since she was merely an early stage of Tier 7, fleeing from them was an easy job to her. After entering the border city, that black figure directly went into the busiest downtown area. Unexpectedly, because of her black face, she was always the center of everybody's attention wherever she went. Resigned, Yin Wu quickly walked into an inn. Beneath the eccentric gaze of the innkeeper and guests, she ordered a room and had a bellman bring her some hot water. Back then in that pit, all her hair had been soaked in that little brat's saliva and become very sticky. Though it was dry now, she still felt very uncomfortable. Now that she was in and in, she decided to do some washing first. When Yunwu looked into the bronze mirror and saw that face as black as that of an African native, she was nearly scared to death. How did she end up like this? That kind of black gave people this feeling that it was her real skin color. Even her lips were also black. Yunwu hurriedly rubbed her face only to find that the color didn't change a little bit. She was horrified, her heart pounding. Soon, the bellman sent a basin of hot water to her room. Yunwu dipped her hands into hot water, rubbed her face again, and was relieved. Fortunately, the black dirt could be dissolved by hot water. Otherwise, her life would have been frightened out of her. She couldn't imagine life with a face as black as that. After having the bellman change the hot water 5 times, Yunwu finally managed to wash her face and hair clean. Her skin regained its former delicacy and whiteness, her black hair glossy. Added to them her otherworldly purple eyes. She looked amazingly charming, making people's hearts palpitate, which could be proved by the bellman who was standing at the doorway, transfixed with shock. Her eyes were so wide that it seemed as if the 2 eyeballs were about to drop out of the sockets. And his mouth almost watered, too. "Bellman, if you've had your fill, please close the door for me." It was not until Yunwu spoke that the bellman collected himself. A look of awkwardness flashed across the bellman's face. As if embarrassed, he scratched his head and said, "My apologies. I'm just here to ask you whether you need more hot water. I've just prepared more in the kitchen. If you need it, I'll bring you some right away." "That won't be necessary." After saying this, Yunwu tossed a silver ingot to him. "This is your tip. You may leave." "Thank you, lady. If you need anything, just call me." The bellman's eyes lit up as he saw the silver ingot in his hands, and with that he hurriedly walked out of the room. When it came to managing money, Yunwu actually didn't know much about it. But the bellman had brought her hot water 5 times in a row, which counted as trading manual labor for money, so there was no need for her to be niggardly. After cleaning herself up, Yunwu intended to leave, but soon she realized that if she went outside like this, it probably wouldn't be long before the enemies found her. So she disguised herself as a man, and then left the inn in a leisurely and composed manner. As expected, outside of the inn, she detected Tu Chi hiding in the dark. But at this moment, dressed in shiny clothes with a lot of golden decorations, he was emaciated with sallow complexion, sickly looking, and was also eyeing girls up like a lascivious playboy. She attracted a lot of pedestrians' attention as she walked out of the inn. The 2 people hiding in the dark flicked a glance at him, and contemptuously moved their eyes aside. Unnoticeably, Yunwu slightly curved her lips. In an aimless and idle manner, humming a casual tune, she managed to leave the area in front of the 2 assassins' very eyes. However, what Yunwu didn't know was that not long after she left, this inn was solidly surrounded by a group of soldiers, which scared a lot of passers-by. What was going on? Why did so many soldiers go to downtown area? What happened? Did a purple-eyed female come to this inn not long ago? A ferocious-looking officer yelled in a gruff voice the moment he walked into the inn, followed by a couple of soldiers. His voice was as loud as thunder. Scared, all guests in the inn hurriedly ran out. "OFFI. Officer, what is going on? We're all law-abiding citizens, not Dash." The innkeeper hastily walked up to the officer. "I'm asking you whether you saw someone with purple eyes. Why are you taking nonsense? Just answer me with yes or no." The officer was very impatient. While the innkeeper was thinking, another batch of soldiers flooded into the inn. On the sight of those soldiers in the inn, the one in charge also yelled in a gruff voice, "Innkeeper, did a black-faced female check in at your inn? Where is she?" Black-faced? On hearing this word, the innkeeper instantly remembered. Yes, there is indeed a woman whose whole face is black, and her eyes are purple. Where is she? 2 gruff yells were heard at the same time. The innkeeper buckled at the knees and hurriedly asked the bellman to lead these soldiers upstairs to find the person they wanted. However, the female wasn't in the room. Naturally, those soldiers who came later were sent here by Yin Lingyi. They hurried all the way here to arrest Yin Wu. And those who came first were at the command of the seventh prince who was staying in his mansion for rehabilitation. At this moment, when news came that the female was gone and that Yin Lingyi was also trying to arrest her, a sullen, cold look appeared on the face of Zhou Feiyu, who was sitting in the host's seat in a living room. What a bunch of fatheads! Accompanied by an angry roar, a teacup was heavily thrown to the ground and busted. Watching Zhou Feiyu, who inexplicably became irascible, Coldness Wu, who was standing at the side, furrowed his forehead. A general kneeling on one knee on the ground hurriedly said, "Your Highness, it probably hasn't been long since she left. I've already had some men to close all city gates. A citywide search is ongoing. As long as she's still in the city, we'll surely find her." Upon seeing that the look in Zhou Feiyu's eyes was still chilly, Coldness Wu also said, "Your Highness, if that person was really Miss Wu, maybe it's better that she has left. Otherwise, if General-in-Chief Yun's soldiers catch her, things might be even trickier." Zhou Feiyu's anger seemed to be relieved somewhat after he heard these words. "What do you think we should do?" Zhou Feiyu raised his eyes and looked at him. "Now that General-in-Chief Yun has already known about it, there's no need for us to try to act covertly. We can just keep searching. I think General-in-Chief Yun won't be bold enough to interfere in your Highness matters." After contemplating for a while, Zhou Feiyu said to the general in the hall, "Go and make some inquiries. Find out what it is that Yin Lingyi wants." Yes. The general quickly took his leave. There were only 2 people left in the living room. "Your Highness, I seldom see you get so emotional. Is it because of the Queen's interference in national affairs?" Coldness Wu asked Zhou Feiyu in a deep, low voice. Zhou Feiyu knitted his eyebrows tightly together, an icy look in his eyes. "Don't you think you're being a busybody? I was being unduly talkative. But, Your Highness, given the current situation, if you really want to make some preparations, maybe we can have an audience with the Dragon Cabinet and talk about cooperation. Young Master Long and the Crown Prince are like Damon and Pythias. Do you really think he and I have anything to talk about?" "Your Highness, the so-called Damon and Pythias thing is merely the Crown Prince's exaggerative bluff. Actually, that young Master Long has a renowned merchant who is willing to dabble in anything profitable. As long as our offer is favorable enough, cooperation is not impossible." Zhou Feiyu raised his eyes and looked at Coldness Wu. "You can find that young Master Long?" The leader of the Dragon Cabinet. Young Master Long was a very mysterious man whose whereabouts had always been a secret. Very few people had ever seen him. In fact, a few years ago, Zhou Feiyu sent some men to look for him for several times, but never found clues. But a man as mysterious as him actually made people feel that he was very dangerous. Coldness Wu gave a mild smile. "A couple of years ago, my family once did business with the Dragon Cabinet. Maybe I can make contact with the Dragon Cabinet via my family. But rumor says that for some reason, the Dragon Cabinet has suddenly deployed their men in the Luo city recently. It seems as if those movements were directed against the Morong family." "The Morong family?" Zhou Feiyu lifted his eyebrows. "Yes." A deep look flashed across the bottom of Zhou Feiyu's eyes. "After this talk is over, pay a visit to the Morong family. Venerable Mistress Morong cured the pestilence in the Luo city and the Water city. Send a thank you gift to her on my behalf." Coldness Wu nodded with a smile. "Yes." At the west gate of the border city, a luxurious horse-drawn carriage, driven by a horsekeeper, was slowly driving towards the outside of the city. However, before it could go out of the city, some soldiers stopped it. "The city gate is sealed. No entrance or exit allowed." A loud, gruff voice was heard. The horsekeeper hurriedly stopped the carriage and said in a respectful tone, "Officer, we're from another city. My master is seriously ill and has to return home to receive medical treatment. I wonder if officer would be so kind as to do us a favor dash. I don't care who you are. Get off, get off. Security check." However, before that horsekeeper could finish his sentence, that soldier impatiently dragged him off the carriage and heavily pushed the door of the carriage open. In the carriage, a gloriously clothed noble master was leisurely sprawling in a couch, emaciated with sallow complexion, as if incurably ill. After flicking a glimpse at the eyes of the noble master, that soldier dismissively withdrew his eyes. Then the officer in charge said loudly to those nearby residents who were stranded, "We're looking for a purple-eyed female. Anyone who offers clues will be handsomely rewarded by His Highness." "My lord, who is that female? Why did His Highness seal all city gates to catch her? Did that female by any chance try to hurt His Highness?" A feeble, effeminate male voice came from inside the carriage. On hearing this, all those people who wanted to get out of the city but were stopped started querying, "Yeah, what exactly did that female do? Why are you sealing city gates?" "We have goods to deliver. If you seal up the city, how can we do business?" "That's true. I have to go back home. If you don't let me through, what am I supposed to do?" Hearing those animated discussion, those soldiers became very impatient. "Why are you asking so many questions? Just inform us if you see anyone with purple eyes. Now clear off. Don't gather here." "Then when can we leave the city, officer?" "You can leave when you are allowed to leave. Now get out of my sight." After hearing that rude, impatient voice, residents didn't dare to stay. Before long, they cleared off, though discontented and resigned. The horsekeeper respectfully looked at the noble master and said, "Master, the city gate is sealed. We go back." "Yes." The horsekeeper closed the door and turned the carriage around. Naturally, the noble master, languidly sprawling in the couch inside the carriage, was Yun Wu. With her disguise, hardly anybody could recognize her. Originally, she had planned to hire a horse-drawn carriage and get out of the city above board. But unexpectedly, the city had been sealed up. The seventh prince? How did that Zhou Feiyu know she was in this border city? And he also sealed off the city to search for her, which got a lot of people involved. Now that leaving this city in an above-board manner was no longer an option, she had no choice but to leave at night. If she tried to get out during daytime, other trouble might come to her apart from the two assassins. She had the horsekeeper take her to the busiest street and find a large inn. She had just checked in and hadn't gone upstairs yet when a group of soldiers flooded into the inn. "Innkeeper, did you see a black-faced female with purple eyes come here?" The soldier leading the team yelled in a gruff voice. Almost all people in the inn could hear him. The innkeeper, who seemed to be a sophisticated man, hurriedly walked up to him with a big smile. "Sir, I've been standing behind the counter all day, but I didn't see anybody with a black face. If you don't believe me, I can have the bellman lead you upstairs to search the rooms. But would you please be so kind as to do it quietly so that my guests won't be scared?" Upon these words, the innkeeper stealthily stuffed a big silver ingot into the soldier's hand. The ferocious look on the soldier's face was replaced by a smile. He secretly put the silver ingot into his pocket and said, "Now that you told me there was no such person here, I'll go and search another place. But if you see that black-faced woman, report immediately." Yes, I'll follow your order, and keep an eye open. Once I see anyone with a black face, I'll report to you right away, sir." With a big smile on his face, the innkeeper bowed respectfully and saw those soldiers off. After they left, the innkeeper seemed to be relieved. Yun Wu, who had been standing beside the counter all along, watched the innkeeper who had just turned around, and asked him in a seemingly very curious tone, "Innkeeper, were those soldiers looking for some black-faced woman? Who is that woman exactly? She caused such a sensation." "Master, this matter really makes me feel very resigned. They were the fourth batch of soldiers who came here to search today. Some of them said that they were hunting a black-faced female who wounded a deputy general. Others said that the seventh prince was looking for a purple-eyed female. God knows who that black-faced, purple-eyed woman is. Commoners like me have no choice but to let them search our places again and again. I just take it as buying peace with money." After saying this, the innkeeper let out another seemingly resigned sigh and returned to the counter. A female who wounded a deputy general? So apart from that Zhou Feiyu, Yun Lingyi's men were also hunting for her? Unexpectedly, he had taken action so soon. It had been only a short while since she entered the city, but the hunt had already started. The look in Yun Wu's eyes was somewhat deep and cold, but she affected an air of unconcern and walked out of the inn. disguised as a lascivious, sickly master from some rich family. She walked into the busy street with an exaggerated swagger. After making an inquiry from a passerby about Yin Lingyi's temporary abode in the city, Yin Wu headed for that place in an above-board manner. In the northern suburb of the city, that place had originally been a spacious farmhouse, surrounded by flatlands. Since Yin Lingyi was dispatched here over half a month ago, this northern suburb had become his encampment. Most troops were stationed in further areas outside the city, so there were not many soldiers guarding the encampment. Those troops sent to the battleground hadn't returned yet, and neither had Yin Lingyi. Besides, in order to hunt for her, a lot of soldiers had been dispatched to the city. Currently, there were not many soldiers in the encampment. Now that he was hunting her, she felt obliged to return the favor by sending him a great gift. The army led by Yin Lingyi had just entered the city when a soldier hurriedly galloped over, a flustered look on his face. The moment he saw Yin Lingyi, he immediately dismounted from his horse and rushed to him. "General-in-Chief, something bad happened. Someone set a fire to our encampment and burnt it." "What?" Faces of Yin Lingyi and a couple of generals behind him instantly changed as they heard this. Immediately, most soldiers who had just entered the city hurriedly headed for the encampment in the north. The fire was still blazing. Flames almost reddened more than half of the sky. Soldiers hastily started firefighting. When the fire was put out, all tents in the encampment were burnt down, except for the one in the middle, which was a large tent belonged to Yin Lingyi. "Go and check." Yin Lingyi dismounted from his horse and quickly walked towards his tent. Yin Lingyi was just about to walk inside first when you stopped him. "General, don't take any risks." He raised his hand and signaled soldiers beside him to go inside. Two soldiers walked forward, opened the flies, walked inside and didn't find anything unusual, except for an envelope on a table in the tent. "General-in-Chief, there's nothing inside except for a letter." A soldier walked out and hurriedly handed the envelope to the general. There were 3 Chinese characters on the envelope, Yin Lingyi. Those characters were written with lively and vigorous flourishes, and every stroke of them was powerful, indicating that the one who wrote these characters was no common person. Yin Lingyi took the envelope but didn't open it right away. He exerted his spiritual power on it to scan it, in case it was a trap. After confirming that there was nothing dangerous in it, he opened the envelope and fished out the letter in it. However, a cloud of black fog almost invisible to the naked eye quickly spread outwards as he unfolded the letter. "Watch out!" When you immediately smacked that letter off Yin Lingyi's hand. But it was too late. Right at that moment, Yin Lingyi's face started blackening bit by bit. After a short while, his face became completely black. If there were a crescent-shaped mark on his forehead, he would look exactly like Bao Gong. This change stunned everybody present. Yin Lingyi himself didn't feel anything unusual, but he could see that his hands were blackening bit by bit. He would be lying if he said that he was not startled. When you hurriedly felt his pulse. After quite a while he seemed relieved, but his eyebrows were knitted together. "This is black poison." "What? Poison? How did this happen?" "General-in-Chief." When all generals were worried, when you spoke again. "Black poison is unharmful. It's just that the skin of a victim will stay black for a month. Then the poison will be naturally excreted from pores and skin. Black poison could be extracted from a very common plant, and any druggist could prepare it. It didn't count as a dangerous poison. Who played such a prank exactly? That person not only burnt their encampment, but also put black poison in an envelope." "General-in-Chief, there are some words in the letter." A sharp-eyed general noticed something in the letter on the ground. When you wrapped his hand in his sleeve and picked up that letter. When he saw the words on it, he involuntarily lifted his eyebrows. It was her. Yin Lingyi also glanced at the letter and furrowed his forehead. The look on his face instantly changed. Well, given that his face was so black, people actually couldn't tell whether his look changed or not. They saw that there was only one line in the letter. "General-in-Chief, how does it feel to be black-faced?" Don't risk going into the street lest you be confiscated. Except for that black-faced girl. Who else could have written these words? After having some fun in the city, Yinwu was in a very good mood. With a long time to go before dark, in order to enjoy this good mood to the fullest, Yinwu started strolling along the street on her way back to the inn. It was just that due to her lascivious, sickly face, she felt that people kept giving her contemptuous gaze wherever she went. She had just arrived at a busy section when a fat, middle-aged woman ran into her. "Hey, you invalid tried to molest me? How dare you touch my butt?" A loud, angry yell was heard. Instantly, all people on the street moved their eyes onto Yinwu. This guy took liberties with a middle-aged woman under broad daylight. What a lecher. Judging from his clothes, he must be a master from some rich family. I never expected that a man like him would be so bold as to touch a woman's butt in public. Shame on him. I can tell he's no good person from his lascivious face. When all people around were discussing and whispering, Yinwu involuntarily raised her eyebrows and sized the woman up. However, as if having been molested again, that fat middle-aged woman crossed her arms over her chest and thundered, "Brat, how dare you stare at my chest in broad daylight? You are courting death." Stare at her chest? She was merely a fat, middle-aged woman whose face was full of wrinkles, who had interest in staring at her. But lookers-on were inclined to put 2 and 2 together and make 5, which was why they all believed that woman's words. This is so filthy. He even peeped at a middle-aged woman. So shameless. After that middle-aged woman's angry yell, a tough hombre walked out of the crowd. "Who took liberties with my mother? Whoever molested my mother must be courting death." The moment that tough hombre stepped forward, he walked towards Yinwu with a measured gait with his toes pointing outwards, his muscles rippling, a ferocious look on his face. "Brat, you took liberties with my mother and also eyed her chest vulgarly. How are you going to make up to her for this?" Watching that fierce-looking strong man, Yinwu asked with a bland smile, "May I ask, how do you want me to make up to her?" "Pay at least 80 taels of silver compensation to comfort my mother. Otherwise I'll squeeze you to pieces," the tough hombre thundered, clenching his fists until they clicked. It seemed as if he would kill Yinwu if she refused to make compensatory payment. On seeing this, all lookers-on couldn't help drawing back, worrying that they might get hurt by accident during the potential fight. But Yinwu slightly curved her lips, neither afraid nor flustered. Unexpectedly, in this exotic world, there was also such trick as a trap of seduction, which she found hilarious. But Yinwu had no intention of fighting with him. There were too many people around. If she fought him, things might end up troublesome. "Will you let this go if I compensate you?" Yinwu slightly raised her head and asked that tough hombre who was a head higher than her. That tough hombre answered in a gruff voice, "That's comfort fee. Let it be a lesson to you. Don't be so lascivious, and stop wandering around trying to molest women." There seemed to be awe-inspiring righteousness in his voice. Yinwu couldn't help feeling amused. But she still stretched out her hand into her front inside pocket. When she took her hand out, there was a shoe-shaped gold ingot in it. "Do you think this is enough?" The tough hombre's eyes lit up as he saw the shoe-shaped gold ingot, and he quickly nodded. Yinwu casually tossed the shoe-shaped gold ingot to him. The tough hombre caught the heavy shoe-shaped gold ingot and couldn't help looking at Yinwu. Wasn't this going too smoothly? "By the way, here's a tip for you. Remind this ant to put something under her bosoms to raise them up a little bit before leaving home. Otherwise people might have trouble distinguishing her belly and her bosoms, which will make her seem less devoted to her job." After saying this, Yinwu turned around and left with a smile on the corner of her lips. At first, the woman and her son who stayed on the spot didn't understand what she meant. But after the two glanced at the middle-aged woman's fat belly, understanding suddenly dawned on them, and with that their faces turned dark with rage. Yinwu's figure had merged into the crowd. A master and his servant, who were sitting in the attic on the second floor of a tavern in the distance, saw what had just happened in the street. "Master, I never expected that in this border city, there would be someone bold enough to take liberties with a woman in the street. The moral degeneration of the world is getting worse day by day. There are so many scum of society. In the attic on the second floor, a little boy about 10 years old dressed in white clothes flicked a glimpse at Yin Wu's receding figure, and made these remarks with a frown on his face. Little Qing, I told you before. Learn to control your temper. Disaster emanates from careless talk, a mild, graceful, and crisp voice said. Displeased, the boy in white pouted but still moved his eyes to his master. Master, a month ago, there was a vision in the sky. Lord Grand Maester practiced divination, and found that you would meet the person you were destined to be with at this place this afternoon. Did you see that person? The man didn't answer. In a leisurely manner, he slowly picked up the teacup before him, sent it to his lips behind a veil, and took a sip. Watching his master, who was still as unconcerned and mild as always, little Qing couldn't help feeling very anxious. His master was son of Zhou Kingdom's Grand Maester, who bore the title of the first prophet of God. He was supposed to be an unusually lucky person, but for some reason he had been wearing a hat with white veil since childhood, and he almost stayed at home all the time. But over a month ago, after his master was attacked by a ruffian who sneaked into the mansion, Lord Grand Maester suddenly rejoiced. It turned out that because of that bloodshed, Grand Maester managed to find out via divination that his son would meet the person he was destined to be with at this tavern in this border city at U hour, who would enable him to free himself from the destiny of being alone all his life. After quite a while, soon the bell would strike U hour. Surprisingly, this tavern, which was busy almost all year round, was very quiet this day. There was not a single well-featured young woman. Little Qing, who cared about his master's future well-being very much, inevitably went anxious. Master, I'll go downstairs and take a look. If I see any suitable ladies, I'll invite them here. Upon these words, before the man could say anything, the little figure hurried towards the staircase. But he had just reached the landing when he ran into a figure. After casting a glance at that person, he couldn't help but furrow his brow and block Yin Wu's path, saying disgustedly, You degenerate, why are you here? Watching Yin Wu disguised as a man, little Qing suddenly felt scum like him was exceptionally hateful, as if his presence would degrade his master like a bit of a mouse's dropping would spoil a whole saucepan of broth. Confused, Yin Wu, whose path was blocked, watched this boy who just rebuked her. Did they know each other? But she still blandly replied, This is a tavern, so of course I'm here to eat. What else do you think I came here to do? Pooping? You. The boy was annoyed. Find somewhere else to eat. Can't you see that my master is here? We've taken all seats on the second floor. But the tavern keeper just told me that there were plenty of seats available on the second floor. That was the case a moment ago. Now all seats here belong to my master, so get out. Impatiently, Yin Wu flicked a glance at the boy being deliberately provocative, gently waved her hand, and with that the boy was immobilized, as if his acupoint had been struck. Yin Wu walked past him, planning to find a seat. It was actually a very strange thing. Originally, she was on her way back to the inn, but when she was close to the destination, she sensed the chi of those two assassins. Had they by any chance already found her? To be on the safe side, Yin Wu gave up returning to the inn. She decided to find a tavern to eat, and then leave the city after dark. She had gone to several taverns but none of them had any seats available, so eventually she ended up coming into this one. It was just that she had already encountered a trap of seduction not long ago, and now this boy tried to make trouble out of nothing, which she found very noisy. So Yin Wu blocked his acupoint with a silver needle to quiet him down. Thank you for going easy on him, master. My little attendant was being impertinent. Please pardon him. It's boring to eat alone. May I ask if master is willing to come here and have a meal with me? Suddenly, a mild, elegant and crisp voice came, making her feel very comfortable. Yin Wu couldn't help looking in the direction of the source of the voice. Wearing spotlessly clean white clothes and a hat with white veil, that man looked refined and free from vulgarity, giving her an inexplicable feeling of serenity and comfort. Though unable to see his face, Yin Wu had an intuition that the looks behind the veil were extraordinarily handsome. Originally, Yin Wu had had no intention of talking with this master, but after hearing that voice, she became curious about that man. So she walked up to that table and sat opposite him. Thank you for having a meal with me, master. I Nangong-yi won't forget this favor. Upon finishing the last word, with a gentle wave of his hand, he restored little Qing's acupoint. Yinwu involuntarily lifted her eyebrows, and a piercing look flashed across the bottom of her eyes. Late stage of tier 8? Judging from his voice, this man was probably still young, but unexpectedly, he was already in late stage of tier 8. He must be no common person. Master. Little Qing walked over, feeling like weeping but had no tears. The bell had just struck hour, but he had never expected that the one who was sitting in front of his master would be that degenerate who had openly taken liberties with a married woman on the street not long ago. A sickly, lascivious man. What should he do? How was he supposed to explain this to venerable master after he went back? Tell the tavern keeper they may serve. And go bring that bottle of flowers wine in the carriage, Nangong-yi ordered in a leisurely tone. Little Qing was eager to say something, and even had an impulse to chase Yinwu away. But he didn't dare to do anything impudent in front of his master. After secretly shooting Yinwu a dark glance, he resignedly turned around and went downstairs. As far as I can tell, master is not someone who is willing to share the table with others. May I ask why master invited me? Yinwu said, blandly watching him. But secretly, she had already been sizing him up for a while. This man's chi was steady, and thin callus could be vaguely seen on his right hand, which indicated that he was a kung fu practitioner. But there was no killing aura or smell of blood about him at all. Yinwu was certain that this man had never killed anybody. Judging from his spotless white clothes and the clean table, he probably was fairly obsessive about cleanliness. In most cases, people like him either seldom socialized with people, or didn't like socializing with people. My father practiced divination and predicted that at this time this afternoon, I would meet the person I was destined to be with. Since master appeared at this moment, I think this counts as a predestined encounter to some extent. Let's enjoy a meal together, and make friends with each other. While saying this, Nangong-yi slowly stretched out his hand and poured Yinwu a cup of tea. Practicing divination? Meeting the person he was destined to be with? Making friends? This person was pretty interesting. Upon hearing his words, Yinwu involuntarily lifted her eyebrows and looked at the man wearing a veil. You think people who have a meal together count as friends? In that case, wouldn't there be too many friends? After hearing her words, Nangong-yi remained silent, as if thinking about something. At this moment, footsteps came from the staircase. The bellman came to serve courses. They were all this tavern's specialties, good in color, smell and taste. Sir, your courses are served. I hope you enjoy your dinner. If you need anything, just call. The bellman said after serving the courses, and then went downstairs. Yinwu was not particular about table manners, so she picked up her chopsticks and began to eat, heedless of whether Nangong-yi wanted to eat or not. In fact, she had been busy with all kinds of things, which even included burning the encampment, after returning from the battlefield. And she hadn't had anything for quite some time, so she was indeed very hungry. At this moment, little Qing, who had gone to get the wine, came back, carefully carrying a white bottle in his arms. Master, here is your flowers wine. Pour. An elegant, bland voice came from behind the veil. After casting a glance at Yinwu, who was eating in a self-involved manner, little Qing was annoyed but still poured 2 goblets of wine, handed one of them to Nangong-yi and then discontentedly put the other one onto the table in front of Yinwu. Be spring. To make this wine, my master collected a lot of precious medicinal flowers. However, before little Qing could finish his sentence, Yinwu drank the goblet of wine in one gulp, smacked the empty goblet down onto the table in front of little Qing, indicating that she wanted him to pour her another goblet of wine. Little Qing was stunned, and with that he blushed furiously. Every drop of that wine was worth a fortune. In order to have a taste of the flowers wine made by his master, numerous dignitaries were willing to spend large sums of money, but she drank it like a bull drank water, which was a total waste of this precious flowers wine. What? You invited me to drink with you, But I just drunk a small goblet of it. Yet you began to grudge it? Upon these words, Yin Wu raised her eyes and looked at Nan Gong-yi, whose face couldn't be distinctly seen. In fact, she did want to anger that little brat. Though he was still a little boy, he had been acting like a snob all along. As regards the wine, it was indeed very good. Actually, it was probably some kind of tonic wine. As for in what way it was beneficial for people's health, she was unable to identify what medicinal materials had been used to make this wine. But after drinking it, she felt refreshed and comfortable. This wine must be good for people's health. Little Qing pour, Nan Gong-yi said in a mild, graceful voice. But master, he drinks wine like an old bull drinks water. It would be such a waste to let her drink this precious wine. With a smack, he was slapped on the back of his head. Ouch. Who hit me? Little Qing held his head, grimacing. He didn't know when, but that bottle of flowers wine had been taken by Yin Wu. Your master had given the order, but you still kept nagging. You surely have no idea what the sentence, "A filthy mouth cannot utter decent language," means, do you? If you really don't know, find a mirror and look into it, and then you'll get it. After saying this, Yin Wu raised her head and drank that small bottle of wine in 3 gulps. After that, she put the bottle down onto the table, cleanly stood up and cast a piercing look at Nan Gong-yi, who had been silently staring at her through the veil all along. Your wine is indeed pretty good. It's a pity you didn't bring more. I promise I'll give you a jar of it the next time we meet, my friend. As Yin Wu turned around, Nan Gong-yi said with a smile. Yin Wu was stunned for a second, and then gave a shrug. We can discuss that when we meet again. She didn't think that they would meet again. Besides, after she removed her makeup, the man she disguised herself as would no longer exist. The instant she finished the last word, her petite figure disappeared at the landing. As if having just understood the undertones contained in her previous words, Little Qing, who had been begrudging that bottle of flowers wine, involuntarily got angry and yelled. You are a dog. All your family members are dogs. Hey, don't leave. Come back. I'll teach you a lesson. Upon hearing the angry yell of that little brat, Yin Wu, who had just walked downstairs, curved her lips. But there was no smile in her eyes. Because when she was facing that man, she had a very strange feeling, as if he stared into her soul. But he had been calm and unconcerned from start to finish, as if he was cut off from the outside world. Which was why she was unable to speculate or deduce what he was thinking of exactly. This feeling was blood-curdling, which made her feel that he was a very dangerous man. As a result, she'd better leave as soon as possible. Master, Patriarch asked you to come here to find the person you're destined to be with. Why did you allow that degenerate to share the table with you? Wasn't that? Watching Yin Wu, who was going further away, Little Qing blushed scarlet in anger and nearly waved his claws to express his discontent. But the corner of the lips clamping tightly together behind the white veil slightly lifted, as if the man stood aloof from the world. At this moment, he also stood up from the seat and intended to leave. Master, you haven't met that person yet. It's still your hour. Let's just wait. Little Qing said anxiously. I've already met the one I'd been waiting for. Let's go. What? Little Qing didn't quite understand. He had already met that person? They had been sitting here for the whole afternoon. But that degenerate was the only one who had shown up, and no women had ever come here. Why did he say that he'd already met that person? Did his master by any chance mean that that disgraceful man was the one he was destined to be with? Little Qing's face changed as he thought about this. He hurriedly followed his master. Master, that degenerate was by no means the person you're destined to be with. Let's wait a moment longer. The next day, outside the Luo city, a plain horse-drawn carriage slowly drove into the city. Inside the carriage was a nondescript female who, at this moment, was sitting cross-legged performing qi circulation. After leaving that border city, Yin Wu traveled all night and arrived in the Luo city. But after that outbreak of pestilence, there were probably a lot of people trying to find her in the Luo city. As a result, Yin Wu had changed her disguise in a town near the Luo city, before hiring a horse-drawn carriage to go downtown. She wondered whether that Long Qingxia had heard the news or not. Apart from visiting grandma medicine, looking for Long Qingxia was also an important reason why she had come back to the Luo city this time. In order to revive her body, she needed his blood in addition to vigor grass. She had to find him and revive her body as soon as possible, since Elder White's condition was getting less and less optimistic. If the necklace was sealed up, Elder White would fall into deep sleep again. In fact, after all these things she had been through, she had already regarded Elder White as her mentor. It was under his guidance that she managed to get into this exotic world. And if it weren't for his help, she would probably have died in the forbidden area long ago. As a result, she must revive her body before the seal in the necklace restored. Lady, we're in the Luo city. But that man didn't think much about this, since there were a lot of people blocking his way. Step aside. All of you. Step aside. With his loud voice and his whip, those people crowding the street really started scattering, trying to dodge the carriage, but a lot of them were infuriated. In the auction house of Dragon Cabinet. At this moment there were many lookers on, but none of them was able to get close. They could only watch from the distance. That luxurious carriage went through the North Street, and finally reached a broad street where there was a lot for parking carriages in front of the auction house of Dragon Cabinet, not far away from the gate. The moment the carriage stopped, an attendant standing outside the auction house hurriedly walked up to it. The attendant and the driver respectfully opened the door of the carriage, and a light red figure walked out. Beneath the gaze of a lot of people amazed by her beauty, the female slowly get off the carriage. Lady Ruoff, finally you're here. Everybody has been expecting you. The attendant said to the female in an extremely respectful tone. Did you light the lamp in Master's room? The female asked in a tender, pleasant voice. The attendant nodded. It's been on for quite a while. A gentle smile appeared on the female's face as she heard this. On the sight of this smile, people around all secretly gasped in astonishment. She has exquisite features, a fine oval face and snow-white skin. Her every move displayed charm and dignity. As beautiful as a flower? No, this female was even more delicate than a flower. Especially her liquid, big eyes, which looked limpid and clear but was tinged with charm. This female might be the only person who could be described with the idiom, a single smile would overthrow a city. At this moment, lookers-on around her seemed to have forgotten the previous rampage of the carriage and the rudeness of the driver. All men's eyes were fixed on her. All women clenched their teeth in jealousy. She was really a very beautiful woman. Even Yun Wu had to admit the beauty of that female. Just now, Yun Wu had dodged that whip, and then conveniently followed the carriage through the crowd. At this moment, she was standing behind the carriage, unconcernedly watching those people. When the attendant respectfully led the female towards the auction house, she followed them, planning to infiltrate into the house by pretending to be with that female. However, because of the plain clothes she wore, guards stopped her at the gateway. Who are you? Do you have an invitation? On hearing the gruff voice of the guard, the beautiful woman walking in the front paused, turned around and flicked a glance at Yun Wu. She sized Yun Wu up and soon contemptuously withdrew her eyes and walked inside the house. Contemptuously? Indeed, she could distinctly see scorn and sarcasm in her eyes. She was satirizing her. Yun Wu secretly sneered. She withdrew her gaze, raised her eyes and looked at the guard who had just yelled at her in a loud voice. She intended to say that she was from the Morong family. But at this moment, a crisp male voice pleasant to the ear came from behind her. She's with me. On hearing this, Yun Wu turned her head back, and her eyebrows abruptly lifted on the sight of the man wearing white clothes and a hat with white veil, and the little attendant beside him. They also came here? It was the man she met in that tavern in the border city in the afternoon the day before. Yun Wu managed to get to the Luo city after traveling all night, but how come they also appeared in this place at this moment? Little Qing cast a glance at plain-looking Yun Wu and furrowed his forehead, as if displeased with his master's action. Yesterday he received a male degenerate. Today he helped this ugly woman. Why is master acting so weirdly after leaving home? After grunting these words in a low voice, he reluctantly walked forward and handed an invitation to the guard. It turns out you're Grand Maester's son, Master Nangong. My apologies. I didn't know this lady's with Master Nangong. Please pardon me. On the sight of the invitation, the guard, who had just yelled in a gruff voice with a sullen look on his face, hastily changed his attitude and bowed respectfully. The attendant standing on the side also hurried over to lead the way. This way please, Master Nangong. Grand Maester's son? A flash of surprise crossed Yin Wu's eyes as she heard this. She couldn't help flicking a couple of extra glances at Nangong Yi. One of the 5 items she needed to collect was called pure blood. So it was this man's blood. Wasn't she too lucky? She needed something, and the next second someone just showed up and gave it to her voluntarily? While Yin Wu was sizing him up, Nangong Yi also looked through the veil at Yin Wu. The corner of his lips lifted, as if he was smiling. Then he said politely in a gentle voice, "After you, lady." Yin Wu withdrew her gaze, directly turned around and followed the attendant into the house without saying anything or making any gestures of gratitude. Upon seeing that Yin Wu impolitely walked inside before them, little Qing standing beside Nangong Yi clenched his teeth. This woman was so impertinent. His master offered her help, but she not only didn't say thank you, but also regarded herself as the host. A faint smile appeared on Nangong Yi's handsome face behind the veil, a tender and meaningful look flashing across the bottom of his eyes. Then he followed them inside at a leisurely pace. Originally, little Qing had wanted to say something, but since his master was so disappointing, he had no choice but to follow him. The decorations of the auction house was resplendent, which must have cost the owner a fortune. There were about 20 boxes in a circle on the second floor, and all seats in the hall had also already been taken. The attendant led them to the third box, which was on the left side on the second floor. "Master Nangong, this box is reserved for you. If you need anything, flip the button on the wall, and we'll come immediately." After saying this respectfully, the attendant took his leave. Yin Wu walked into the box and looked around. Over 20 square meters with extravagant furnishings, it was probably a VIP box. Yin Wu picked a seat near the curtain and sat down. From that seat, she could see the whole auction platform as well as the entire hall. Due to the curtain, people couldn't see who were inside the box from outside. It was pretty good. However, Yin Wu had just sat down when a displeased, loud voice came. Hey, you ugly woman. You're so impolite. This box is ours. Why did you follow us in here? And that's my master's spot. Get out of here." Little Qing angrily strode towards Yin Wu. It seemed as if he was going to force her out of the box. "Little Qing." Right at this moment, Nangong Yi's deep voice came. On hearing it, little Qing turned his head back and pouted. "Master, that's your seat, but this ugly woman. You're so talky. Go out and have someone bring us some snacks." Upon saying this, Nangong Yi sat down beside Yin Wu. Watching Yin Wu, little Qing was very unhappy, but he knew well about his master's temper. Eventually, he coldly snorted at Yin Wu, turned his head aside and left. Yin Wu flicked a glance at that little brat. Little Leaf was also about 10 years old, but she was much more adorable. This little guy was so noisy. "I hope you wouldn't mind, lady. My little attendant has always been like that. He means no harm." A mild, refined, pleasant and very polite voice was heard. Yin Wu turned her head aside and cast a glance at Nangong Yi, who was sitting on the other side of the teapoy. "May I ask if Master Nangong means any harm?" From the very beginning, she had always been having this weird feeling that this man stared into her soul, which sent chills down her spine. If it weren't for that she had heard that he was the Grand Maester's son, she wouldn't have been in the same room with this man at all. It was so weird. She felt very uneasy, but Yin Wu didn't show it on her face. Having disguised herself as a plain-looking woman, she directly looked back at the man who was staring through the veil at her. On hearing her words, Nangong Yi gently smiled, as if in a good mood. "Why are you smiling?" "It's nothing. I just feel that the way you talk is pretty interesting. You seem like a daring person. Are you worried that I might abduct and sell you? Nangongyi said in a mild voice with a smile. Obviously he was smiling, but she didn't feel that he was teasing her at all. Instead, there seemed to be an air of sacredness and spiritual purity about him, which made her feel calm. The fear in Yinwu gradually dissolved after she heard his voice. This was so strange. Yinwu couldn't help sizing him up again. This man was Grand Maester's son, and Grand Maester was acclaimed as the best soothsayer. Did he by any chance also know how to practice divination? Had he already known her true identity? Or had he seen through her disguise from the very beginning? Lady, if you keep staring me like this, I might misunderstand you. Nangongyi watched Yinwu smiling. Misunderstand her? Yinwu was briefly stunned, and then the corner of her lips lifted. Master Nangong is so humorous. I'm very serious. On hearing this, Yinwu was stunned again. She couldn't help flicking a glance at him. Nangongyi said no more, and just watched her in silence. The room became quiet. Yinwu knitted her pretty eyebrows together. That creepy feeling came back to her. Hey, you ugly woman. Why are you staring at my master like that? Right at this moment, Little Qing's loud voice came from the doorway, and with that Little Qing carrying snacks ran inside. He put down the snacks and angrily stood before Yinwu with arms akimbo. He glared at her as if she had just tried to sexually harass his master. Yinwu pulled a wry face. Why did he think that she tried to seduce his master? But his presence dissolved the creepy feeling she'd been having. Knock knock. Right at this moment, sounds of the hammer hitting the table were heard. On the sight of the person who had just appeared on the platform, all people stopped discussing and quieted down. On the auction platform stood a beautiful woman wearing a light red dress made of thin silk. She was the auctioneer in charge of this day's auction in the auction house of Dragon Cabinet. Wasn't that woman the one who had given Yinwu a contemptuous look at the gate? On the sight of the woman on the platform, Yinwu curved her lips in a sneer. No wonder she dared to be so arrogant and hurt pedestrians on the street. It turned out that she was an auctioneer of this auction house. Ruo Ling swept her beautiful eyes through those people sitting in the hall. When she saw the astonishment in the eyes of those men amazed by her beauty, she felt an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. But she couldn't help looking in the direction of the box opposite the auction platform on the top floor. In this world, there was probably only one man who had never looked at her carefully. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ruo Ling, the acting chief auctioneer of the 13th branch of Dragon Cabinet Auction House. I'll be hosting today's auction, which is the first auction after this auction house opens for business today. Soon she withdrew her gaze and made a self-introduction to all people present with a smile. After the opening speech was made in a tender, pleasant voice, the hammer went down. Today's auction begins. She cleanly declared the start of the auction. Both people in boxes and those in the hall couldn't help showing signs of admiration. Before an auction started, there was always a verbose warm-up speech, but in fact, that only made people feel impatient. But the Dragon Cabinet's reputation was well-earned. Though this chief auctioneer looked so young, her manner was very brisk and decisive. My master said that since this was the day the 13th branch of Dragon Cabinet Auction House opened for business, Dragon Cabinet would only charge the highest bidder half price during the auctioning of the first lot, no matter how high the under the hammer price is. After saying this, Ruo Ling waved her hand, and with that a female carried a crystal-clear, fish-shaped jade plate to the platform. This jade plate was carved out of top-notch congealed fat jade. It calms the nerves of the wearer, and makes the wearer feel cool in summer and warm in winter. The starting price is 1,000 taels of silver. Each bid should be no less than 100 taels of silver higher than the previous one. This was the first lot, and there was also a 50% discount. Obviously, it didn't count as precious. Besides, its efficacy was not impressive at all. It was widely known that what made the auction house of the Dragon Cabinet different from other auction houses was that they never disclosed any information of the lots before the auction. But there were always some surprising treasures in their auctions, some of which were even of extreme rarity. especially the last lot of every auction, which always caused a sensation. As a result, though the Dragon Cabinet never disclosed what they were going to auction, all their auctions had full house. In some cases, seats were booked out a month in advance. But on this day, the first lot of the auction seemed a little disappointing. It was totally quiet in the auction house. Nobody took a second glance at that jade plate, as if nobody was interested in it at all. Though 1,000 taels of silver was not much, people were unwilling to waste money on such a small jade plate. They would rather save money to bid for the last lot, which was the most precious. Everybody remained silent for quite a while. If nobody bid, the first lot would go unsold. If the first lot went unsold, the auction house would become a laughingstock. But Ruoling, standing on the platform, remained calm. 1,000 taels of silver. Right at this moment, a boy said in a seemingly impatient voice. He was in the third room on the left side, which was Nangongyi's box. On hearing this voice, Ruoling on the auction platform raised her eyes and looked in the direction of the box. But soon she withdrew her gaze. She asked 3 times in a row, but there was no other bid. The hammer went down, and the first lot was sold to the bidder in the third box at half the starting price. Before long, a teenage girl sent the auction jade plate into the box. "Master Nangong, this is the top-notch congealed fat jade plate you've just bought. The price is 500 taels of silver after a 50% discount." Yinwu picked up her teacup and leisurely sipped at her tea. After glancing at the jade plate brought here by the teenage girl, she secretly scanned it with her spiritual power. When she sensed thick, pure white fog in the jade plate, her eyes lit up. The moment this top-notch congealed fat jade was brought to the auction platform, Yinwu felt that the soaring dragon scroll in her consciousness gave a jolt. Though the jolt was not a violent one, it aroused Yinwu's curiosity. So Yinwu asked Little Qing to bid on her behalf. Little Qing glimpsed at Yinwu and said in a seemingly impatient voice, "Ugly woman, what are you waiting for? You bid for this thing. Pay for it yourself." Watching the jade plate on the table, Yinwu felt somewhat inexplicably excited. As a result, she ignored Little Qing's confrontational remarks. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.